In the year 2000, two men flew to Dallas with an offer that would have changed everything. They wanted $50 million. The men on the other side of the table laughed at them. The company that laughed was Blockbuster. The two men they laughed out of the room were Reed Hastings and Mark Randolph. The company they were trying to sell was Netflix. Blockbuster would be bankrupt in 10 years. Netflix is now worth $250 billion. This is the financial autopsy. To understand how badly Blockbuster misread this moment, you need to understand what Blockbuster actually was in the year 2000. 9,094 stores, 60 million members, a retail empire that owned Friday nights for an entire generation of Americans. At peak, Blockbuster was processing around 3 million customer transactions every single day. Annual revenue, $6 billion. Their CEO was John Antioco. He was widely considered one of the best retail operators in America. He had turned the company around once already. Wall Street loved him. Blockbuster was not a failing company in 2000. They were dominant. That's what makes this story so instructive. Because what Antioco and his team failed to see wasn't that they were losing. It's that they were about to. Here's the thing that everyone gets wrong about this meeting. Netflix in 2000 was not the Netflix you're watching right now. There was no streaming, no original content, no prestige dramas, no recommendation algorithms, no autoplay. Netflix in 2000 was a DVD by mail service with 300,000 subscribers and a cash burn problem. They were losing money. Their stock had crashed. Hastings genuinely needed a buyer. So when he walked into that Blockbuster boardroom, he wasn't walking in from a position of strength. He proposed that Netflix would run Blockbuster's online business. They'd handle the web. Blockbuster would handle the stores. A partnership. The asking price, $50 million. Blockbuster made $6 billion a year. $50 million was less than 1% of their annual revenue. Imagine you make $600,000 a year. Someone offers to sell you something for $5,000, and you say no. That's the scale of what happened in that room. The Blockbuster executives, and this is documented, laughed. They showed Hastings and Randolph the door. Now here's where most versions of this story stop. They tell you Blockbuster said no, and they present it as a failure of vision, as stupidity. I want to push back on that, because the real lesson is much more uncomfortable. John Antioco and his team were not stupid. They were logical, and logic was the problem. In 2000, Blockbuster's late fee revenue was around $800 million a year. Not revenue. Profit. That's 14% of everything they made, falling straight to the bottom line. Netflix's entire model was built around ending late fees. No late fees. Keep it as long as you want. Just return it when you're done. So from Antioco's side of the table, this wasn't an opportunity. This was a startup asking him to hand over $50 million to destroy $800 million of annual profit. Think about that from your perspective. You're running a wildly profitable business. Some broke startup walks in asking you to fund a product that cannibalizes your best revenue stream. The MBA answer, the Wall Street answer, the analyst answer, all of them say no. The problem wasn't that Antioco couldn't see the future. The problem was that he was optimizing perfectly for the present. And that gap between what's rational today and what's necessary for tomorrow is where most great companies go to die. After turning down Netflix, Blockbuster didn't do nothing. They actually moved fairly quickly. And that's the cruel part of this story. 4 years after the Dallas meeting, Blockbuster launched its own online rental service called Blockbuster Online. And it was actually good. Competitive pricing. No late fees on the mail rentals. They even added a feature Netflix didn't have: return by mail or in-store. 3 million subscribers. The gap was closing. It was actually working. Then Carl Icahn got involved. Icahn was a major Blockbuster shareholder. He hated the online strategy. He thought it was too expensive, too speculative. He mounted a proxy fight, replaced 3 board members, and ultimately forced John Antioco, the man running the turnaround, out of the company. The cost of eliminating late fees and funding the online expansion was around $400 million over 2 years. The board looked at that number and flinched. Under new leadership, Blockbuster reversed course. Late fees, back. Investment in the online business, cut. In the same year, 2007, Netflix signed its first content streaming deals. By 2010, Netflix had nearly 15 million streaming subscribers. Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy in September of that year. They listed $930 million in debt. So what actually killed Blockbuster? The popular answer is Netflix, or streaming, or the internet. The financial autopsy says something different. Blockbuster had 2 separate chances to survive this: the Dallas meeting in 2000, the online turnaround in 2004. They walked away from the first one. They abandoned the second one while it was working. The 50 million was never really the number that mattered. The number that mattered was 800 million. The late fee revenue they couldn't bring themselves to sacrifice, even when they knew it was the only path forward. Not stupidity, not a failure of vision, a failure of will. The inability to kill the thing that made you successful in order to become the thing you needed to be. Blockbuster didn't fail because of Netflix. It failed because success made it impossible to imagine being anything other than what it already was. Every company we autopsy on this channel dies a version of this same death: the decision that felt safe, the revenue they couldn't let go of, the competitor they laughed out of the room. Next week, we open the next case. If you want to be there when we do, subscribe. It's free, and it might be the most useful thing you do for your understanding of how money and power actually work.